Hello everyone. So we meet after quite a long time. It's been summers in Delhi and it's been very difficult for me to make a video outside. Thankfully it's windy today and I was traveling all of these months and I couldn't get back to all of you. So I'm here today to talk about something which I have been asked quite a few times by a lot of people. They ask me what exactly is soul retrieval. I will of course be making multiple videos on the idea of soul retrieval but this is like an introductory idea of what soul retrieval is. Basically, soul retrieval is a shamanic exercise. I will be talking more about shamanism in my upcoming videos, but to understand it in its core, shamanism is indigenous ways of connecting to nature and nature spirits by various cultures and across various regions. For example, the North American shamanism is different from say the subcontinental or the South Asian shamanism. How people connect to nature and nature spirits there is different from how it happens here. However, the idea is to basically understand what your core being is made of. The fact that you yourself as a human being are made of the earth, the air, the water, ether, fire, and of course you are composed of your animal origins. You are composed of the origins that started before you were on this planet earth. You are composed of your plant origins. So all of these beings that are around you, you have the elements of them, and going back to all those core nature of who you are is the essence of shamanism. However, now I will divert a bit from shamanism and talk more about soul retrieval. So it's a concept in shamanism, and the concept is that whenever we go through trauma, what happens when we go through trauma? To put it very briefly, trauma affects us in ways where we are unable to process the events and experiences that we go through. For example, an accident. When we go through an accident, we do not know what is happening. In 3 seconds, in 5 seconds, in 6 seconds, automatically, our brain shuts down. The nervous system goes in a flight and fight or freeze mode. And of course, whatever events happen during that time, everything is done automatic, which means everything is done through your reptilian brain, not through your thinking brain, not through your neocortex, but everything through your reptilian brain is done at that point of time, because it's all stress induced at that moment. It's all limbic at that moment. It's all autonomic at that moment. So that's what happens bodily in trauma. So your body and your brain is unable to process the events, the experiences that you go through during a trauma. Trauma could be anything. It could be an accident, as I said. It could be a war, witnessing a lot of violence around you. It could be multiple times being abused in a relationship, physically or sexually, It could even be really brutal things like rape and molestation, which is violating, which is invasive, which is transgressive. Now, what happens spiritually in a trauma? I will, of course, explain in my further videos about the physical and mental aspects, but what happens spiritually in a trauma is that parts of your soul, parts of your being, parts of your energy, your consciousness get fragmented. There are parts which leave your system. Just like we have a mental disassociation in trauma, because we disassociate from the event so that we can survive. That's why we have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, right? We carry the after effects of trauma because we are unable to process it. When the brain is unable to process it, it is a continuity for the brain. Try to understand this, that when you fall down a flight of stairs in a traumatic way and you hurt your body and you are unable to process what exactly was happening during that point of time, and you land up in a hospital, in that moment of fall, in that moment of shock, you could not process it. You immediately disassociated. However, when you are in the hospital, you can of course feel the pain, you can of course feel the trauma, you can of course go back to that memory, but maybe you won't be knowing the exact steps of action that happened during the trauma, right? However, what happens is now when you go back and look at a flight of stairs, all you feel is fear. So you are carrying the after effects of the trauma in the form of post-traumatic stress. Similarly, when a veteran soldier returns from a war, the images, the voices, the violence, the brutal murders, the killings haunt him. All of those images and voices and words haunt him, because in a traumatic state, the brain does not process properly. It's in this stress mode. It's in this autonomic mode. Every action that a human being does is autonomic in nature, is only by the flight and fight mode, right? So that's what happens. Now, because there is mental disassociation, there is also something called spiritual disassociation or soul disassociation. One part of my being, one part of my soul disconnects from my soul, fragments from my soul, and remains in that time, remains in that space wherever the trauma has happened. And that's what we call as soul loss. When a part of my soul is disconnected, is disassociated in order for me to survive the trauma, in order for me to continue through life, that's when soul loss happens. And when soul loss happens, there are actual energetic holes that form in your system. There are several processes to go back to that moment. One of the processes, of course, regression. There are many other processes of going back to that moment of trauma where we go and retrieve that part of the soul. We collect, we cleanse, we process whatever had happened properly, and we allow that part of the soul to somehow come back to us, and we retrieve it. Okay? And of course, I will explain the methods in my later videos briefly, but this is what is soul retrieval. Whenever there is loss of soul parts, and in a practice, in a method, in a healing session, we have the ability to go back to those times, to those space wherever trauma has happened, and we can collect back that part back into our being, body and soul. And that's what is called as soul retrieval. We do it through regression, we do it through shamanic drum beating, we do it through inner child work. There are many methods to go ahead with it. If you have any questions about it, please ask me. I'm of course soon coming up with a workshop on soul retrieval, and stay tuned. Thank you.